Hello, fellow co-creators, people who've worked with me, know me, friends, family, and people who may be watching this who haven't met me before. My name is Creatrix Libby, and Creatrix is a phrase that I put with my name, Libby Hoffman, because it helps activate the reminder of the feminine creator in me and in all of us. And this time of sacred co-creation together as humans. This is an introduction to a concept of somatic abundance and somatic reciprocity. We're going to get into what those mean. I'm going to share a taste of my story. If this concept is interesting to you, at the end of these 15 minutes, I will offer you a way to go a little bit deeper into this in a multi-week format. And regardless of whether you do that, I hope that this video brings you a sense of wonder and a sense of courage. So there are two things that I'm going to be setting you up with in this video, and I'm going to share a bit of my story within that. So the two things I'll be setting you up with is this definition of somatic abundance, somatic reciprocity, and a short experience to help connect you to this in your own body. Because soma actually is a word connotating body, mind, spirit, energy, this thing that we are that is multidimensional. And the other thing is what I call a values compass, which is just a way of connecting to our core values and using them like a compass to help direct us in times of uncertainty, confusion, and dis-ease, and also when we are desiring to create. So first, I want to actually begin this experience with a story of what led me to working on these two things. Hmm. And honor the day. So, what led me to working on somatic abundance and my own values compass are two experiences in my life. The first with somatic abundance is extraordinary dis-ease within my own body. I had a ton of emotion as a kid, a ton of energy, and I felt like I didn't know how to exert it. And when I was hyper, people would just be like, wow, it's amazing, or wow, it's way too much, and it's crazy, and it's loud, and you need to quiet down. But when it was more heavy and more disruptive, I would literally pull my hair up of my head and I would scratch my arms until they would bleed. So there was, from a young age, an experience of desire to destroy really my own being. And I don't think of it as really hating myself, but more as I just feel so out of control. And this is one avenue for me to just calm down. I don't know what else to do. The second experience that really contributed to my walk with this work. So that contributed, that's the darker side of my work with somatic abundance. And we'll get into again what somatic abundance is. I have my timer over here, so that's when I'm looking this way. I'm not the best person with time. Um, on the other side, I grew up in as a seventh child in a family of 12 in a deeply Christian home. I have my dad had 10 siblings. They are all married with kids, Christian, and my family had all my older siblings are now married. We had much more diverse paths, but still with that firm Christian foundation. And so when I left the US at the age of 17 and began working at a school of social work in Haiti with one of my older sisters, um, my mind began to open up and I began to question things about the world, about the nature of poverty and why the world was ordered the way that it was. I began to question the religious upbringing that I had and set forth on a deeper exploration of spirituality. I had a vision for traveling around the world studying religion. And my sister actually told me, I feel like that's been done before. And then that was at the age of 18. At the age of 22, I actually did do that. And it wasn't just religion. I was also studying myself. I was also staying in work stays and hostels and meeting people. But I was also volunteering and working on farms. And I did a 10-day Vipassana retreat. I lived in a Buddhist monastery for a month. I worked on youth and peace building work in South Africa. And I went to Jain and Sikh temples in India. Um, I got a taste of multiple dimensions of religion. And at the same time, I still was wondering, how do I orient myself as a woman, especially when many of these religions are created by men. And there is really an expression that's wanting to come through me. And while femininity and creativity aren't the same thing, my fire and passion for both of those things kept me searching for what it looks like to express myself. So while I had other experiences in my life, I share about these two experiences to kind of set the tone. After that experience of traveling at the age of 22, I moved to San Francisco and decided to actually pursue my degree in user experience design in technology. But at this time, my younger brother, who was 2.5 years younger than me, was hospitalized. He had his first suicide attempt and was diagnosed with bipolar. And I ended up moving home at the time that he did take his life. We had about 6 weeks in between. At the same time, I had already had this trip planned to go visit a friend of mine in Brazil for her wedding and to travel to Costa Rica beforehand with a different friend of mine. So the Costa Rica trip did not work out because with the friend I was supposed to go to, but I went alone. And this time period from May 13th of 2019 until June 12th of 2019 was a period where my body felt like it was moving through extraordinary things. And I had initially gone to a funeral, gone to these beautiful gatherings with people from my childhood, and everyone had flown out for the funeral. But then I went to Costa Rica and was alone, and I actually used an alternative name. My name's Elizabeth, so there's a million variations. I used another version of my name. I didn't tell them my brother died. I just wanted to get to experience life and pretend that it hadn't just happened. And then I started experiencing this deep pain in my belly. And for the weeks following, I was experiencing this pain. I had experienced qualities of anxiety prior, but nothing quite like this, where was really shaking my whole system. And on June 12th of 2019, before I went to bed, I actually prayed and I asked for help. And I hadn't really been in prayer prior to that. And because I had already felt quite confused about my religious space that I was in, but I loved Buddha and I loved Christ. And in this prayer that night, I actually could feel them as one, not think about it and try to grasp it, but I actually felt them as a united force that I was praying to. And that night, when I went to sleep, I ended up having a dream. So this was the night of June 13th. Um, in this dream, this is leading to somatic abundance and a values compass, but it's also rooting in my own life story. In this dream, my brother actually came to me, and this was after like 3 weeks of my body being feeling very sick and not at rest. And in the dream, because at this time there was so much confusion, he was 21 years old, even though we did have 6 weeks with him, all of it was very sudden. He came to me and he actually comforted me, and he was writing this letter, and there was this feeling that everything like made sense in some way, and everyone else was at ease. There was also this image of his tomb. He was cremated, but in the dream there was like his tomb, and I could just see it going out past the distance that I could see. It was like a tomb that had no end. And at the moment that everyone else was feeling calm, I was still so agitated and I was saying, I don't understand, I don't understand. And my sister said to me, Libby, he's already explained all this. Why are you still bothered? And he put his hand on my arm and he just looked at me and he said, It's okay, Libby. You can ask your questions. And the reason I remember this dream so vividly, A, is because I had it, but B, because I actually woke up. I saw it was June 13th and I was like, wow, it's literally the month after to the day. And it was the middle of the night in Brazil. So I was like, I don't know who's awake at this time, but I have a good friend of mine that I've known for about 5 years at that time. And he was in Saudi Arabia for the summer with his family. And so I just tried him and he picked up. And so that night, he actually sent me after that phone call. I disclosed everything that had happened in the dream, and he sent me a voice message back describing what he had seen and what he had heard me say. And from that moment on, um, I'd already gotten some guidance to support me to connect with my body, but I had felt confused on how to do that. But from that moment on, I felt affirmed in, well, first of all, the stomach pain that I was going through actually went away. And then I also felt affirmed in just being on a path that did not fit in any box. And so the next 7 years that unfolded up until today, it is 7 years from that date, has been a journey that feels very much like the image behind me. This is why I use this image in my Zoom calls to support us to think about the spiral rather than linear time. And somatic abundance on its basic is being at a state where we're actually on a mind body energy level meeting ourselves and also allowing ourselves to be met, which involves seeing our own needs. So even if you take just that snippet of that moment, there was me being in pain and me lying, being in some sort of denial, using an alternative name, pretending my brother hadn't died, up until the point that I had to actually speak it to the people around me, of which they were actually surprised. But then on top of that, meet the dis-ease in my system and also ask for help. Whether or not you believe in prayer, um, to a higher power, like a power out of you, we always have the opportunity to actually speak to ourselves. And you can imagine speaking to a higher version of you or a deeper version of you or to your own heart or to your own body. Um, so there was many ways that I had to actually surrender and turn toward what I was feeling. And also I could be met and guided. And so I share this because what I like about where I'm at 7 years later is that the journey continuing from there was extremely difficult and extremely spirally and has required constant and consistent attention and care and nurturing. It is not a one-off resolution. It is just a deepening into myself, my relationship with others, my relationship to nature, and my relationship to the mystery or the divine. And yet, it began with me meeting myself where I'm at and also having openness toward outer support. Somatic abundance matters in the work that I do with people because actually, over time, what we are working for and toward is ease in the body. It is greater nervous system ease. It is being able to access the state the way that I'm speaking now. I don't feel this level of ease all of the time, but I know how to connect into it. I believe myself because after that, I also reconnected to a dream I had had about losing a sibling early in my life and my dreams about the state of humanity that led me to peace building. So while dreams are one way I've been spoken to in my world, there are many other ways we are also connected to in this space of somatic reciprocity and abundance. Sometimes it is intuition, deeper guidance. Sometimes it is revelation, spiritual writing. Sometimes it is being spoken to or met by a stranger. And none of these things mean we have to blindly follow, but we can actually open our receptivity toward different guidance of what we need. And I believe that when we are beginning to work with the body and awareness, energy and intuition, our beliefs and our mindset, and our emotions and sensations, we expand the possibility for what action looks like and open ourselves to a path that is more surrendered to possibilities for our life and each other and this planet. And my work, Codes of Creation, is about supporting us to tap into that. But even if you work with me in one-to-one work, in relationship coaching or creative coaching, if you're a current client, I invite you to notice how I have invited you into that process of receivership of your own needs, receivership of guidance in the collective around you, receivership of your team, receivership of nature speaking to you. That actually helps activate these streams, these deeper knowing, this remembrance of who you are, of who we are in our own lives, in our bodies, with each other. So that's an intro to somatic reciprocity or somatic abundance. Somatic meaning mind, body, energy. So we're meeting that. And reciprocity meaning relational, in relationship. So that reciprocity is essential for greater abundance to happen. So somatic abundance isn't, I need to feel hyper right now. Now we're jumping up, 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 out of what's happening down in the body. I need to feel happy. Libby said I need to be somatically abundant. So my mind, body, and energy is just so alive and it's so abundant, and I can just affirm myself. And yeah, of course, we want to work with the magnitude and the magic that is a part of life. And we don't have to deny what is happening in the body. And many of us, if we have not been in reciprocity first, if we have not been in seeing and hearing ourselves at an embodied level first, we will jump into these higher states and then we don't know where to meet them. And that's not wrong. It just is also asking us to bring the body with it. And just one quick example of this is that same summer I read Becoming Supernatural by Joe Dispenza, which is a book about trauma healing through meditation. Everything in that book made sense, appeared to me. It was extremely supportive. But I still had a physical breakdown again in November of that year at Thanksgiving, even after writing this long article, Remembering Dan, expressing all of my memories and love because I hadn't known how to meet my body. And years later, the work of Joe Dispenza is becoming much more real and available to me, but because I have much more tools to meet the body. So my work is an exploration of those four realms. I put them like this because Codes of Creation and my work of helping people in a month format begin to connect with each of those realms, which really can be done in a year format too, is a way to start to tap into that multiplicity. So your ability for action and for meeting yourself can expand. Because when we actually meet ourselves, then the next thing actually becomes intuitive. It becomes sensual, it becomes beautiful, it becomes obvious, it becomes inevitable, as some of my clients say. A couple of my clients who I've worked with for over a year have told me it just is inevitable, Libby. I just can't stop it. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It doesn't mean we're without challenge, without difficulty, yet, but we are tuned in and connected to the knowing that grace and elegance and love and beauty and liberation is here for us now at whole new levels in the body. And now more than ever, we have to protect ourselves from what we are taking in our ears, our eyes, our bellies, so that we can actually attune to that which wants to manifest life through us in new ways. Okay, so for our values, I am over 15 minutes. My time I've added to, but I am trusting the story that wants to come. Hmm. Taking a breath with that, I'll just share on the other side of this comes the concept of the values compass. Everything I just shared about the seasons and the way of connecting with our multitudes has been part of my healing journey that got activated upon my brother's death, upon a sexual reckoning that I went through after that, and the deep care of my own inner child, who, of course, has complementary genetics to this being and has, been in a family process of addressing bipolar and anxiety and depression and layers of things that some of which can be addressed medically in the systems that exist, but many which require, even if you have medical support, also require a more integrated vision. And my work is an exploration and research of that as well. It's not the negation of mental health as we understand it. It is actually the same way functional medicine, integrative medicine is looking at the best of Western medicine and asking about its relationship to holistic care. That is how I view my work, integrative or functional mental health work. Okay, on the other side with our values compass, now we still have to make choices as humans. And so here is, and we also get to co-create and play with the world. And so I'll give an example of at a time, COVID happened about 9 months after Dan passed. So the world shut down. And um, this was a time where, it was very easy to go into a more depressive state, isolation, loneliness, and then for me, already moving through that. And I was in a much more depressive state just prior to COVID, and I'd already worked on a rhythm. I'd had amazing quality of support come into my life that helped me through that Christmas and year. And then I was in this pattern where I was just doing a couple yoga poses and walking every day and getting into sacred geometry and just staying open, staying open. And at this time, even though there was not social interaction much, even though I was going through some of my own struggles, me being a deeply relational person and always being guided, I had support at that time to help run a interspiritual interfaith group. And so that was one level, staying in connection to others who were rethinking spiritual principles in life. And the other thing was I began creating vision boards. I loved Pinterest and I would make these vision boards. And within a year, I was living, some of my vision boards had aerial silks on them because I loved the image, the photography of people being elevated and expanded. Aerial silks is when you're just hanging from the sky. And a year later, a little over a year later, I had ended up moving to Hawaii through a series of things. My neighbor and friend was a dancer and was like, "Do you want to take an aerial silks class with me?" And today I'm in her house. I have not been back in Hawaii in 4 years. At the time I'm recording this, I'm in her house. She has an aerial silks hanging in her house. So when I'm talking about dream doulaship, I'm talking on one side in the somatic abundance side of meeting our own body, and I'm talking on the other side about our creativity and our desire and testing and playing with the world and with the earth. I had so many photographs of mountains and nature, and I moved into this very mountainous area in Hawaii. And if you know my life, all of these things have involved chaos and overwhelm and the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I don't mean to tell the story as if it's fairy tale like alone. However, that is why I am now working with the Light Dark Institute and have always been knowing I need to do that kind of work. But I share the story because the light and the dark does not eliminate our creative power. So with this, um, we can ask, so what would I want to manifest, because we don't want to be manifesting just from escapism. That's the somatic abundance piece. What do we actually desire when the body is more at ease? And one other thing that just popped into my mind is at that time when I was also running these interfaith groups, I also got to be a part of some things that were for young people. And it was so deeply inspiring to witness some of these middle schoolers have this appetite and language for talking about the world in such a more constructive way than I had. And the children, the teenager, one of the teenagers of that group that I helped with, I am having dinner with his parents tonight because their family ended up moving to Hawaii, and I have not seen them since that time. So, so many synchronicities. But yeah, we might want to ask, well, what does manifestation or co-creation with the world and in the world look like when there's so much deconstructing and crumbling? And I might have in my own world, in my own life, so much deconstructing and crumbling. And then how do we focus on what is being created and made? And can we manifest or create in a way that honors that both and process of the destabilizing and the crumbling and the opening up and the expansion? And so the values compass to me is a way that we can start to bring, if you've done polarity work, this is my play also with polarity work, hence what's behind me. This is our play of how we start to bring in our poles of things that we want to prioritize. So there's infinite poles, but let's just take one being like more soft versus strong, or more flexible versus more malleable, flexible versus adaptable, open versus more strong, pillar-like, grounded. You can take any variation of those words and you can put those on your east and west sides of your compass. And then let's take two other versions, grounded, deepened, and expanded. And that can be expanded, like far-reaching, achiever, creator, and then grounded, softened, rested at ease. That can be more your north-south. So you can create any polarity of values that you want in your pole, but you can think of on one dimension your width and you're reaching, and on one dimension your length and you're expanding and deepening. And you could even think of a Z dimension as well if you want it. But you don't have to get too caught up in the dimensions, they can change. But essentially, what are four values that keep you coming back to the table, that keep you wanting to be here, that bring aliveness to your system? And in a way that honors the need for stability and safety, and also the desire for creativity or beauty or adventure or play. Too much ice. So, with this, from the values compass, you can also just go straight to something that I love, which is either vision boarding or vision playlisting. Um, but I invite you to play with the values first, because the more that you can see for yourself a vision that involves rest and doing, or connection and self-care, the more you will want to take action toward that. And the more you can see opportunities for that, the more you're going to be able to meet your body as it is. And the more you meet your body as it is, the more you're going to be seeing and opening. And the beautiful part of this is that when all of this is in service to connection, first connection here and then connection here, then this motion within us, this infinity loop within us, starts to get connected to an infinity loop in another and another and another. And this is when the whole cogs in this machine start turning. And it truly does become quite magical. So, Codes of Creation is a 4-week experience where we work with those dimensions that I described: body and awareness, energy and intuition, beliefs and mindset, and emotions and sensuality, in a way that serves more aligned action. So that gets yourself acting in alignment with greater ease in the body. And then also identifying your values compass through that time. and how what values inspire action and rest and helping you to meet your needs, your desires, your visions, and your values. And you might wonder, like, how does that it relate back to your religious journey, which was one of the stories that started you here? Well, religion at its finest, in my opinion, would actually be something that connects us to our wholeness. And wholeness is both. And the religion we've been taught is something that typically disconnects us from body, disconnects us from earth, disconnects us from multiplicity in ourselves, disconnects us from relationship. At its best, it can actually do the opposite of all of those things, but that's requiring a deconstruction and constructive process. So my questions about religion and spirituality softened as my relationship to truth deepened. Truth that is embodied, truth that's coming through the body, through the throat, through the eyes, through the pillar of beingness within me. With this, I just bring this reminder from my brother, Daniel John Hoffman, that we can expand. This is my own message, but after he passed, I just had this desire. How do I keep working on this expansion? That he was such a vibrant being who wanted to expand so much. And he loved testing his body limits, and he loved testing his artist limits, and he loved testing limits like most artists do with other substances. And it turns out your early 20s and late teens is a very dangerous time to be playing with substances when you also have a history of mental health issues that might not have been addressed, and also likely are in a male body that has been educated not to share your emotions and not to ask for help. And so I have been in contemplation for 7 years about how to take the lessons from my brother's death into my life, into the people's lives who I love, into the world around me. This contemplation has been daily. It has been consistent. It has been in every relationship. It is so loving. And I have been supported. And I hope that and desire that codes of creation this summer for anyone who participates, and beyond this summer, whenever you're listening to this, um, that codes of creation might be an activation into a more beautiful way of being with your wholeness, light and dark, and a powerful, magnetic, expansive experience into connection. It is one entry point, and 4 weeks, a month is very short to get introduced to these things. Well, it's 7 years since my brother died. It's 9 years since a little less than 9 years, because it was September that I left for my travels around the world. And so I have been almost a decade on this path of deep exploration. And even though I count the 9 year because that's when I stepped out of college, it's been 13, going on 14 years since I first went to Haiti. And within there, I also went to Malawi. And so I got to have these experiences in the Caribbean and on the African continent, really asking questions about why things are the way they are on this planet. And for, yeah, for another video, I've worked in race relations work. I've really been in longer term contemplation about participating in our evolution as humans and as a species. And this is meant to be and is a collaborative participation. So I just bring this reminder from me now of the power of a love that continues to open, and patience, extraordinary patience and extraordinary courage. And I ask that you consider what tapping into whatever you feel on this call today. I ask you to consider what it might feel like for you 7 years from now if you were to pay attention to some of the glimmers that you are receiving here. And I invite you to share a message with me of something that stuck out to you here, or something that feels important for you. And it might be doing this 4 week experience with me, but it might be just remembering a part of you, remembering a part of us, remembering a part of us as a culture, as a species, as our relating with nature and plants and animals and earth. And I also want to add this is not the opposite of, this includes so much. It's not the opposite of economics or finances or politics, but it is an activation into an energetics that will fundamentally shift how we approach all of those things, because all of those things are rooted in our relationship to one another. And if our relationship to ourself and the divine and earth and other beings shifts, so does our participation in all else. I will also share a list of resources outside of this video for things to explore that have inspired me on my 7-year journey. I ask for grace and patience because this has been a very challenging journey for me, as beautiful and opening as it is. So I may not respond to your inquiries about this video right away, but I do run codes of creation and use that as a way to connect with people in whatever is present for them. Let's close this time with 3 breaths, dropping into the body, softening the eyes, looking around the room, or coming into stillness. Thank you. You can ask your questions. It's okay.